Hey y'all, I'm Casey Bell from the Shake Up Learning Show, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
I'm like you. That first time someone said you need to meditate, this will help you. Try these courses. I'm like, I can't. My brain is going over everything, and then I'm thinking about this and what I'm not doing here, and it takes time. And yeah, so 100%. You've just being mindful is just enough, I think, sometimes.
Welcome to the Burned In Teacher Podcast. I'm Amber Harper, and the educators on this podcast are brave enough to share their stories of burnout with the world. On BIT, we get real, we get honest, and we take action. Action against the burnout with stories from burned out teachers, advice from experts, and actionable steps you can take today to beat the burnout and become a happier, more fulfilled human being. Let's get started. You know, during my 12-year teaching career, it seemed like there was always something throwing off my lesson plans, mindset, or goals. And when I began to burn out and tried to talk about it, all I heard was join the club, go for a walk, have a glass or 3 of wine. This is just the way it is. The current challenges you're facing, distance learning, new technologies, higher expectations, discipline issues, a personal crisis, a global pandemic, all of these challenges make your everyday life seem unmanageable. Until now. Teacher burnout has been hacked and the book is here. In Hacking Teacher Burnout, I share my 8-step process that shines a light on burnout as an opportunity for growth and change. And in it, I empower you to become burned in, a fulfilled, happy, efficient, and effective teacher in the classroom and in life. You'll learn the steps you can take action steps based on your burnout type. Feel ready for the next challenge. Thrive, not just survive, personally and professionally. Feel ready for and learn how to grow through your burnout, and so much more. Hacking Teacher Burnout is here and ready for you to order on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com, so go check it out. Or go to hackingteacherburnout.com to learn more and place a bulk order for your staff. Take a deep breath because you're about ready to do something big for your burnout. Burn on. Hello there, Burned In Teachers. Welcome to episode 97 of the Burned In Teacher Podcast. This is one part burnout and all other parts action, inspiration, and support for teachers dealing with burnout. I'm your host, Amber Harper. What's up? I empower burned out teachers to believe that they deserve and can achieve a happier and more fulfilled career and life with my 8-step burned in process. And yes, I also mean during the pandemic, during quarantine, during all of these crazy times. I can't even begin to list, all of the stressors that are happening in our everyday lives these days. But with that 8-step process, I have helped many, many teachers to make some necessary changes in their life, whatever that is for them, that helps to bring them to a happier and more fulfilled state in their life, in their journey, in their story. And you can begin too. If you haven't taken the Teacher Burnout Quiz, go to burnedinteacher.com/burnout quiz. It's 6 questions. It's super quick, 3 minutes or less, and it's really going to get you onto a path of looking and thinking and feeling differently about your current career and reality and this one life that we have, so you can move through and grow through this burnout. So this episode is for every type of burnout, whether you're burned and bored, burned and over it, burned and unbalanced. Maybe you're just feeling a little off, which you'll hear Beth Williams talk about today. I'm so excited to share this interview with you. She has taught for 17 years. And it wasn't until the pandemic around March and April that it got to a point where she had to start looking for something different to bring into her life so that she could make it through that incredibly challenging teaching time. And as we'll talk about very quickly into our interview, we kind of jump right into talking about the challenges that she has been facing, along with many of you, with students not showing up or not engaging during her online lessons. So it is my pleasure to introduce you to Beth Williams. Beth is from Manchester, and she is a burned-in teacher on a mission to help teachers find their inner warrior and sunshine through the 4-pillar plan. And as she tells you here, as we start to have this conversation, she put together these 4 pillars for herself, which was really funny. There's so many times in this interview that she is sharing, and I just smile ear to ear because her journey is a lot like mine. She wanted to find something that would work for her in her journey, in her life. And honestly, that's what I want for you. I want you to find things that work for you. There is no one right path out of this season of burnout that you're in. Nobody knows your story or your journey better than you. And Beth is a perfect example of what it means to take control, to stop, slow down, and pay attention, and to do your research. And actually, she'll even state during her interview that it was during this time that she was doing her research that she found Burned In Teacher, that she found the podcast. She went out searching for answers and support. And although she hasn't taken the teacher burnout quiz yet, she will if she needs to, and she will move forward. I know she will. She is the wellness warrior after all. So without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce you to Beth Williams from Manchester, and we crossed the ocean to bring her to you today. So listen well, take some notes, and she's going to share with you her 4 pillars and how she brings these pillars of wellness into her life every day. All right, see you in there. Beth, thank you so much for joining us on the Burned In Teacher podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Yeah, I'm stoked to be here. Hi from a very rainy England
Yeah.
at the moment.
So this is really exciting. I've been interviewed on a podcast in England, but I've never had a guest from the UK. So I'm really excited to have you here. This is we're just crossing bridges here and doing new things. So I'm really excited. So Beth, tell us a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, a little bit maybe about your family and your career.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been in teaching now for about 17 years. I joined late. I started off in a nursery. I was very lucky. My auntie owns a preschool nursery, and it was sort of a transition from being a preschool nursery teacher to then go off and get my degree to become a teacher. My mother is a teacher. My one of my grandparents was a teacher. My cousin is currently a teacher. So teaching and educating is definitely within the blood. 100%. It was a natural progression, I think, from school, college, and teaching. Although I didn't get there in a usual transition, I did take a year out to sort of maybe find my own path. But yeah, so it was probably going to always happen. I was the kid that used to line her teddies up and teach them when I was very little.
That's so sweet. I know a lot of teachers that I've talked to, they speak that same story of their childhood. Yeah, that's fantastic. So what do you teach now?
Science, and I'm also a pastoral lead for a group of 14-year-olds at the moment.
Okay, so are you a middle school science, high school?
So the way it works kind of over here, we don't have a lot of middle school, so it's just high school. It's got a 6th form, so it goes up to 18.
Okay.
But yeah, I just predominantly teach 11 to 16-year-olds science.
Wow. You are a smarter person than me. I could never. High school science was not a pretty sight for me as a high schooler.
I try my best.
So are you fully remote right now, Beth?
Yeah, we've got key worker kids in, but all my lessons are online. Yeah, fully 100% remote. Yeah.
Okay. We started to chat a little bit before I hit record. And before we go into your burnout journey and these 4 pillars that you want to share with us today, I have to ask you, because you just mentioned it on your own. And I thought this is such an important piece of conversation to bring into this conversation, and early, because it is something that is weighing so heavy on teachers' hearts. And that is because you said, Amber, this is the most interaction that I've had virtually on a Zoom call since this started. And that broke my heart when you said that.
Yeah.
And so I want to know, and then you can kind of go into, your story here and tell us how you created these pillars that you work on with yourself and with other teachers that you work with. How do you handle the disappointment that comes with students either not showing up or not engaging with you in your online lessons?
I think it's got to come down to the fact that as long as we're trying the best, and that we can only give our best, can't we, at that moment in time, that not to really allow it to disappoint in such a way. I mean, we've only recently been put back into this lockdown. So in September, we were face-to-face teaching. And then obviously the Christmas period, we then got put back into a full-on lockdown again. So we're finding our feet. It's difficult. The first time round, we weren't teaching virtually as much, because number one, we didn't have the technology. Number two, we were worried the kids didn't. So this time round, we've been fully prepped, and but we're still sort of trying to find our way around it. Like you said, it's heartbreaking, because I like to engage in conversations when I teach, and I love to have, it's part of the most amazing part of the job is to have those conversations with the kids, isn't it? And get that backwards and forwards, the banter flowing and everything else. And now it's just all being typed, and you don't even know what they're doing behind the screen. So I think a lot of it is that we're nurturing each other, and I'm constantly checking with my colleagues. Are you experiencing the same thing? Is this happening with you? And X, Y, and Z. And luckily we are all in it together. And I've got a lot of teacher mates that don't just work in my school, and they're having the same issues. And I think because it's a collective, it kind of warms your heart a little bit more, right? So you don't feel so alone. And so at the moment, it's just a constant communication to be having with each other, really, to make sure that we know that it's not just me.
Yeah, that's a really powerful place to come from, when you know that you're not alone, that this is it's not your fault. I mean, we can always improve in things, right? And learn more and
Oh, yeah.
but when it comes down to it, there is only so much you can control. So I'm glad to hear that you have a really good system of support to help to get you through this time where a lot of teachers are losing their identity, because they are teaching to blank screens or creating video lessons, that are pre-recorded and sending them out, and they're not able to have that face-to-face interaction with students either way. And that's very, very challenging.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking, isn't it? It is. It is. It's devastating. And that's kind of what we've sort of said. We want to make sure that we're not losing who we are and our main vision and what it is that we go into teaching for. And we're still trying to really keep those routines going. So we're sticking to the timetable. So the kids know exactly what lessons they've got going on. We know exactly what lessons are going on. And we're literally sticking to those routines to help keep that definition of who we are, really, and make sure that we're not losing our way. Because the first lockdown, because it was all a bit wishy-washy, I think a lot of teachers a lot of teachers kind of lost who they were, and it wasn't until we got to the summer holidays and then back in September, and we were all thinking, this is going to be really crazy. We've not taught for 6 months, 5 or 6 months in a classroom, and I was nervous going back in, wondering if I could still do it, because I hadn't been out that long, and it was still quite nerve-wracking, definitely.
Right. So have you had any, symptoms or signs of burnout during this time of going into lockdown again? How are you feeling? How are you dealing with all of this?
I think because I now recognize the signs, and I can pick up very quickly on what my telltale signs are. And I literally just stop, slow it right down, reflect on what it is that I'm doing in my practice, and make sure that I am true to my own self and my own self-care. But we throw around the buzzwords, don't we, self-care, all the time, but it's key. It's really key for our profession, especially, and it's something that I want to really work hard on with other teachers, because we're just losing so many. I don't know if it's the same over in your state, but we're losing so many good teachers because we're not looking after each other and looking after ourselves. So before I sort of allow it to take hold, shall we say. You kind of feel it coming on, don't you? It's like sort of knocking on the door. It's for me, when I suffer from burnout, I'm just tired constantly. And I
I was
will
just gonna say, for me, it is a chore. I can't even get out of bed.
yeah.
It is having to force myself out of bed. And and that's when I know trouble is brewing if I don't get it together and start, like you said, zeroing in, stopping, really focusing on what's going on.
Yeah, 100%. Grounding back down and just sort of recognizing, and there's that little light bulb and you go, oh, there I am, I'm still here. Okay.
It's great. And it's for me too. It's if I get a burst of energy, I have to just write it like a wave, because typically in that moment, then I can get myself back on track and focus on what's important and what's going to move me forward and continue to do this work. So I don't know if for you, what do you do? Maybe this is a great time to kind of lean into, the grounding. I know you have those 4 pillars and some steps to really help you to get back to who you are and why you do what you do.
Yeah. So the 4 pillars, I've totally stolen it off the internet.
They looked very familiar when I saw them, but it's no less important. It's no less important.
No. And so what I've sort of recognized for me is physical health is key. And if I can make sure that I'm spending some time doing something that's from a fitness kind of level, that I can spend 20 to 30 minutes just getting out of my head, whether it's going for a run, doing some yoga, taking a walk, just making sure that I'm hitting that sort of area of my life. So I did a lot of research during the first lockdown. So this was around about April time, and I'd come through sort of recognizing that I was smack in the middle of burnout. I hadn't really heard of the word or the terms until I was actually in it. I didn't really understand much about it. And it wasn't until then that I took the time to reflect. Luckily, I tell people that the first lockdown actually came at a bit of a blessing, and it was my eat, pray, love moment. I know that sounds dead cheesy. But it was where I sort of felt like, well, something's got to change. I absolutely love my job. And I was talking to my partner and she goes, I don't understand how you love your job. I don't get it. You say you love it, but like, look at you, you're worn out constantly. So I took the first lockdown and really Googled the hell out of, number one, what does burnout mean? And I was ticking all these boxes. And then I looked at how I can use what I already know about myself and sort of apply it to this idea of life being like 4 pillars. You knock one of those pillars down, the others have to stand strong. You keep knocking them down, it's not going to stand on one pillar. So for me, the areas that I focus on is physical health, mental health, my environment, which is a bit weird at the moment because obviously the environment of the classroom has now come to sometimes home, sometimes in school, and social relationship well-being, and making sure that I'm staying strong to those connections. And that works for me. A lot of other people I know, they put financial well-being in there as well, and they tie other strands in, but those are the 4 that really work for me. And that I know that if I'm not channeling energy within those 4, then my burnout will start to appear. So it's just making sure that I'm looking after those 4 areas really, and in putting those into my self-care plan, shall we say. So I have a couple
of questions for you based on what you just said. So first of all, you've been teaching 17 years and you said you just started Googling it back in April. And so am I assuming correctly that you didn't go through burnout for 17 years? You were just,
I think I was
great. I mean,
no,
wow, that's incredible.
I think I was dipping in and out. I think there's definite areas within my life where I've dipped in and come back out again without actually realizing what it is. I've been fortunate within the school that I've worked in. I've been given different kinds of roles that have allowed me to sort of take a break again. from being 100% teaching, I then was given the opportunity to become a more of a pastoral lead, less teaching. And I did that for a good number of years. And again, that sort of helped sort of reflect back on what it is that of how I was feeling. But prior to that, I think I was in and out of burnout quite a lot. But putting it down to it's teaching.
Well, that's really impressive. So you must have some really good coping skills and a really great support system around you.
I think a lot of it is because prior to that, I think a lot of it I was instilled in, well, it's just the job. You're going to be tired. You're going to be crying on a Wednesday afternoon because you've had a tough time. You know, you're going to want to not go in numerous of times throughout the months of February when it's miserable outside, you know, and a lot of people said to me, you're just going to have to crack on. And that's how it is. And it wasn't until back in March, April time where I was forced to reflect on things. And with the help of my head teacher, a major incident took place in school, and I found myself literally crying into her arms in her office because of this incident. I took it all very personally, and it was then when they said, look, you're suffering from burnout, you're there, this is it. And I was like, I don't really understand what that was. And then since then I've looked back and gone, oh my God, I was at that point as well, and at that point, and I can see the little pinch points throughout the year, because
so much of what you're saying resonates with me. So much of it, that roller coaster, that, breakdown. Oh my goodness. Feeling, and whenever you try to talk about it, people are just like, yeah, this is just the way it is. You better learn to deal with it or leave, because you're not going to, figure it out. So the reason that you're actually here on the podcast is because I put out a call in the Burn and Teacher podcast Facebook group and said, hey, would you like to be a guest? And you raised your hand so fast and said, me. So did you find the Burn and Teacher podcast in the community through your searches in April?
Yeah, literally. I was on Apple Podcasts as much as I could to find as many sort of avenues into, number one, right, burnout and in teachers. There's hardly anything over here. So, it was a welcome find, and I was like, amazed that you've got such wonderful guests that are all talking. I'm like, oh my God, I'm normal. Yay!
Yeah, you're not crazy. Would you mind sharing then what type of burnout did you take? You took the quiz?
I don't think I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that could be your next step, but it sounds like you're doing fine, but you could take the teacher burnout quiz too and identify what type of burnout you're dealing with as well. So let's go into a little bit deeper into those pillars. If you wouldn't mind getting a little vulnerable and maybe sharing what your specific what your personal routines are in each of these pillars. So you mentioned the first pillar was physical exercise. Yeah. So can you tell me, you said 20 to 30 minutes. So do you have a set time every day that you dedicate to physical exercise?
I can get quite obsessed with it. So because it fills my whole body with so much of those endorphins that you get when you exercise. And I know this. So I have to be quite careful, because I could easily plan out my day around my exercise.
You and me too, girl. Seriously, it is a huge part of my life. Yeah. So I'm so excited to hear yours.
So I went through, I've moved to a different area, so I've got a bit of a commute, but I did used to like doing a morning workout. Get it in, get it done, go hard, and then go straight out to work. Whereas now, I've noticed that I've changed a few things. So I used to do a lot of HIIT sessions because they're quick, aren't they? And you can just get them done. Whereas now I've realized that I need to slow it down a bit, slow my pace down. I'm now 40. If we're going to talk about self-care, why do I have to put myself through all of this abuse and then ache for days later? So for me, I'll schedule, let's say, 3 days a week for a run. And I'm not saying I'm not going to do some cardio as well at home, because I probably will. A big shout out to, there's an app over here called the Fit app, and they've just offered 4 months of free teacher content. So that's really cool. So I'll do 3 days of a run in, and then I'll try and fit in some yoga, because that then properly grounds me right down and helps to sort of get me back into who I am. And And then that's that. And then a walk of a weekend. So I've got to get out in nature. If I'm not out in nature, I am not fully zen. So I cannot get back to who I am. That's my
Yeah,
main.
that's fantastic. So do you have, and pardon me if I missed this, I was listening to all the different types of workouts that you do.
Sorry.
Did you, no, it's fine. So do you have a set time of day that you do this? For me, I am up between 5 and 5:30 in the morning to get a good hour in.
Right.
Do you find that it's helpful, or do you just kind of, fit it in whenever you can?
I have to do it after school. I
Mm-hmm.
have to come in. It's my stress relief.
Mm-hmm.
So what if I don't do that? I will brain dump on whoever will listen. So I'm the sort of person that's coming in and blah 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 about my day, and this happened and this happened and this happened. So I have to literally go, right, I'll have a cup of tea in a minute and I'm going to go out for a run, get it done. And then that helps me listen to your podcast or listen to some music and just get out of my head. And then by the time I've come home, nothing's important. It's gone. I've left it out there on the streets. And so I have to do it definitely after work.
My husband has gotten into that routine as well. He will come right home from school. He's an elementary school principal,
Right.
and he goes right
Wow.
to the basement or outside if the weather is decent. Right now, the weather is awful,
Oh.
but he just goes and he spends an hour, and he will watch a show while he's running or lifting weights. So it's just kind of that mental release. It's that good transition for him from school to home, and he feels so much better once
Yeah.
it's done. Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
yeah.
So Beth, tell us a little bit about your mental pillar and how you work that into your life.
Okay, so this is an area that I haven't really done a lot of work on. I've always been quite physically fit. I'm a PT as well. I've got my PT certificate, so that kind of fitted into my lifestyle. But for mental, I always thought, well, that's not for me. It's a bit wooey, a bit Zen master. Oh, no. So it didn't. It's something that I've got to really work hard on. Because I'm the sort of person that can sit and ruminate and go over conversations and literally beat myself up within my own head of how rubbish I am, literally after any conversation. So I've gotten into a really good habit of they call it the monkey brain, don't they? I'm not listening to this monkey inside my head and making sure that whenever any negative or any sort of overthinking happens, all about that journal it down, get it written on paper, and just make sure that I can sort of get whatever's going on in here onto the paper. I've taken up obviously meditation, big believer of just stopping, sitting, focusing on my breath, listening to various sounds and trying to tune in with where I'm at. And it's amazing how little nuggets just pop up. And it's like, I didn't even know that was going on right now. Okay, now that explains that. And it helps. It really, really helps to sort of focus and just making sure that I'm not listening to my self-doubt and trying to give a lot of positive energy into myself more, really, and not having to sort of beat myself up all the time. So having little reminders of you can do this and you've got this.
I love that so much. I resonate with that because that's something it's never for a lot of people, whenever they're short on time, the physical goes out. Like, I don't have time to go for a walk. I don't have time to, take care of, be physical and exercise. For me, I've always made that a really high priority, but for me, it's always been that mental part where the meditation, I don't know if I could honestly say that I feel like it's just too woo woo. For some people it's prayer. For me, it's been just getting quiet. And I have found recently, and I'll have to link it in the show notes.
Sure.
I was invited to this 21-day abundance challenge from Deepak Chopra. And they are on YouTube. They're so easy. So I went through all 21 days, and honestly, I kind of binge listened to them. And I have to be honest, listeners, I'm not perfect. Okay. I'm on the journey with you. Okay. So I'm going to be completely honest here. I don't sit quietly yet. I'm on my way.
Yeah,
I don't sit quietly with my eyes closed. I get up, work out. I make my protein shake. I turn on one of these YouTube pre-recorded meditations, and they're like 12 to 15 minutes long. I turn it on YouTube. I prop it up next to my shower. I shower while this is playing. I take some
Yeah.
deep breaths. I pay attention, and then I continue to listen as I'm getting cleaned up and wash my face and get my makeup on. That's become part of my routine. So I'm getting there.
No, that's cool. That's a
So
mindful shower. It's good.
yeah, right. And I have heard it said before, sometimes it can be really intimidating to take somebody from never meditating before
Mm.
to that space where you think that you have to be sitting, thumb on pointer
Yeah.
finger,
Yeah.
legs crossed. That's really intimidating. And so for me, and I have found that it's like I have these, and we are high achievers as teachers, right? Like we want to get it right and perfect. And for me, I'm like, you know what? This is good enough right now.
Yeah.
This is where I'm going to
100%.
start. And the more I'm doing it, the more I'm interested in bringing it as part of, maybe after my workout, I do this while sitting. I get quiet and get ready for my day before I get into the shower.
Yeah.
Something like that. So
Yeah.
it's the process, right?
Oh, 100%. And it's just little things, like you said, it's being present, isn't it? Eckhart Tolle, the genius that is, will tell you that you've got to just be present in that moment. And even if it's just taking your morning coffee and just having a little wander around the garden, or having a look outside and getting that fresh air, and just making sure that you're getting the day before. Because I think for me, it's so easy to rush out the day,
Absolutely.
get out that door, and I have to have a minute or two and just sit. And I'm like you, that first time someone said you need to meditate, this will help you, try these courses, I'm like, I can't, my brain is going over everything, and then I'm thinking about this and what I'm not doing here, and it takes time, and yeah, so 100%, you just being mindful is just enough. I think sometimes meditation isn't for everyone, and
no, it's not. And I think it looks different for everybody. I think we also shouldn't put it into this box of this is what it has to look like in order for it to be valid, and actually be meditation. I think that, driving in your car, I like to drive in silence sometimes, just to be in that quiet. And actually, to kind of piggyback off of that, Amy Moore, and I always reference her book, 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do. I think it's actually the 13th thing. People who are mentally strong are not afraid to be alone with their thoughts. They're not afraid to be in the quiet. And because, like you just said, where you have those thoughts pop up when you get quiet, it's when you open that space that your brain is able to say, I have a solution for this, or I have a way that we could look at this. It's when we're going, we have that idleness aversion, that belief. And I don't know what it's like in the UK, but here in the US, if you're not doing something, you are being lazy, or at least that's what we're telling ourselves, right? We have to be doing or making something all the time. And that's not true. And we call it the lizard brain, by the way.
Oh, not the monkey brain. Interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
So Seth Godin calls it the lizard brain. And that's what I have kind of called it as well. But it's that lizard brain telling you you're not good enough, or you're not doing this right. You're so dumb. Like who do you think you are?
I had it before coming on the podcast.
Yeah.
Who are you to do a podcast?
Yeah, girl. I feel like we're the same person in many ways. So that is fantastic. Thank you so much for laying that out for us. So what's the next pillar?
So it's environment for me.
So tell us a little bit about how that works for you.
Yeah, getting my environment in check. And I am a big earth lover. So throw me into the middle of a forest, and with all that greenery, or with the leaves turning into, we call it autumn, fall. And I am at, my perfect point. Get a stream flowing through, and I'm at my zen. So for me, environment, not only does it mean being at one with the world around you, and all of this devastation that's gone on at the moment, I'm not even going to get into, but it's like heartbreaking.
I'm in the United States, right? So
I don't think we've got it much better. But it's also making sure that it's that old-fashioned phrase, tidy house, tidy mind, tidy house, tidy life. And making sure that your surrounding environment is just flourished full of lovely stuff, and lovely sounds, and lovely smells, and lovely pictures, and making sure that everything within your setting is just as how you would want it. So it's, decluttering, getting rid of things that you don't need, Marie Kondoing the stuff that you no longer want a big pile of stuff for, and just making sure that everything's just as it should be, really, which is difficult because we've got 2 boys.
I was going to ask you if you had kids. So, so that makes it challenging too, right? Especially when you talk about that rushing, especially out the door in the morning. Yeah, for sure. I love that you talk about decluttering, because I think that kind of goes along with that mental health too, is decluttering your space so you can declutter your mind. Because if you are surrounded by physical clutter, it really does seep into your mind as well. You can't concentrate when there's not a tidy space. And that's not to say it has to be Instagram worthy or perfect or never messy. We're living, right? So I mean, things aren't going to be perfect, but I think that's a really important thing, because I know that, I've been in classrooms before that I want to hyperventilate, and it's not a judgment, but I'm just thinking, my goodness, if this is what you're teaching in, I wonder how you're doing, in your head, and again, I'm not trying to be, funny or like judge their mental health, but I'm thinking, this just makes me, and I like to have things where they are, where they're supposed to be, but I'm also okay with having, I've got a couple of papers just like laying here. They've been here for a couple of days.
Yeah.
But I think that there's something to say with making it a priority to keep that space tidy so you can focus, really just focus.
Yeah. For me, the environmental one is the one that I notice that slips. So if I'm within the mix of, maybe it's exam period or whatever time of the year it is, my environment is the one that I'll go, I've left that coffee cup there. I need to make sure everything else right. Let's just calm this down.
100%. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. And I love also that you talk about being out in nature. That is something we're so lucky where we live, that we can just drive down the street and we have trails upon trails that we can just go out and get into nature.
Sure.
It's just food for the soul. It's fantastic.
Definitely.
So what's the last one?
For me, it's relationships. And that's just not just relationships within, obviously, your family. That's communicating with perhaps extended friends, extended colleagues, but just maintaining that connection and having those important conversations where it's not just one way. Something that I think when I'm in burnout, the thing that goes is the mindful conversations. I can be very short and snappy and just, I can't be bothered listening to you. I've got to crack on with what I've got to do because I'm up to here with X, Y, and Z. So it's making sure then maintaining that there's a good connection with people, so that area doesn't really sort of get devalued in a way. Because I think, it's really difficult at the moment, obviously, with the way we are, because we're missing those connections, aren't we?
100%.
But even, this is a connection. This is a conversation. And I think we're obviously leaning more towards that now, more than ever. And going back to right at the start, not having it with the children, that's incredibly difficult, and maintaining that we keep it with our colleagues as much as we can. I will throw out emails, once or twice a week to key people that I know that will spread my message and sort of just to make them show, I'm still here. Let's try and catch up at some point and have a conversation on the phone, or if we can do it in person, even better. But,
how do you protect those important relationships that encourage you and do what I call, they build you up rather than tear you down? What is your experience with people who don't want to connect in a productive of course we come together, also in times of hardship and say, for example, like you said, you had to lean on a teacher where you just had a breakdown and you just cried, that's healthy, right? But I think what takes it over the top in that helpfulness is when they say, how can I help you? How can we move past this? Have you had any experiences where it just continues with the venting and the frustration and the negativity? How do you protect that part of yourself with that connection? Because I think that's also something that's really hard to navigate as a teacher, and where I call it burned and over it. If you are connected with somebody who is so over it, so negative, so apathetic, they don't even really see it in themselves, but they're dragging you down as well. have you had any experience with that you can speak to, and how you protect that pillar of yours?
Yeah, for sure. Because I think at times we can become quite a negative bunch, can't we, as
Mhm.
teachers? And we're so beaten. And I had a bit of a wow moment, and I said the reason that we feel so beaten is because we've got the kids at us. And they can be difficult and challenging. Then we've got the parents
Mhm.
that can also be challenging, and then you've got colleagues and higher leadership colleagues as well, sort of pecking your head. So for sure, I've had experiences of teachers that will just want to we call them drainers. They just want to moan and sort of get you hooked, and you can almost see if they've got you. Oh yeah, they are reeling you right in.
Mhm.
I'm quite good at flipping it into more of a. It depends. It's treading carefully, isn't it? If that person genuinely needs some support
Mhm.
by providing a listening ear, but not providing any extra fuel to the fire, shall we say?
Mhm.
I'm quite good at sort of listening and then showing them all the positives that we also have within our establishment. Our school is a brilliant school, and it's only made negative if you are allowing to think that way.
Mm.
So sometimes if they're coming to me feeling a little less cheery, shall we say, I think I've got quite good relationships with our staff to sort of, okay, right, we've had a conversation, but let's look at the positives. Let's focus on some positives from our day, and they tend to snap out. They tend to realize, oh yeah, I'm being a bit of a drainer here, aren't I? Sorry. They can sort of go back on themselves.
Yeah. And I think both of those pieces are healthy. I think it's healthy that number one, they know that they can come to you and let it
Yeah.
all out, but then you can help to bring them back on track.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I've ranted and raved, and that's just human nature, isn't it?
Right.
And it could just be one email on a Friday evening, and then you're
Mhm.
going in. It could be anything in that. And I think as long as you're aware of it, it's setting boundaries as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh.
Saying, look, you can come to me, but I can't take all of I can't take all of your grief. It's
Mm.
you've got to see the light at the end of the tunnel on your own.
Mm.
A big saying that I do like to brand around in our school is that to be the fill your own cup, but don't empty others.
Oh, I love that. Fill your own
Mm,
cup, but don't empty
yeah,
others to fill your own.
yeah.
I love that. That's brilliant. Beth, you are just filled with such a wealth of knowledge. I'm so grateful that you raised your hand and said, I
Oh,
want to share, because to have a teacher of 17 years who has just taken major strides to take care of yourself
mm.
and yes, some of it is conventional health,
Of
self-care,
course, yeah,
but a lot of it is just saying, I am going to holistically care for myself and pay
yeah.
close attention. Is there anything else that you'd like to add today before we
Oh my God, I've got pages.
Bring it on. We have a few more minutes if there's something we
No,
left out.
no, we've covered absolutely everything. I just want to obviously take this opportunity to say thank you for spending an afternoon with me.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I like you just said, I'm at home a lot by myself,
Yeah.
and I cherish these conversations because I
Oh,
certainly was not planning on being home as much as I am
no, I
as I
know.
have lately.
Yeah.
So tell other listeners how they can find you.
I'm big on Instagram.
Mhm.
My Instagram handle is it's at the Wellness Warrior.
Mm.
So that's probably the best place you can look me up, and I'm always dropping in some crazy videos and some healthy hints. I like to call them hacks,
I love
just
them.
to
Yeah, and I
throw them
love
out.
your hacks because that goes right along with hacking teacher burnout, which is my book.
Yeah,
So I connected really well with that. So there are actually some underscores there. So it's at the _well_ness
yeah,
_warrior. So
yeah,
and
that's
we'll
the
have
one.
that in the show notes as well so people can connect with you.
Yeah, come and check me out. Come and drop a message just to say hi, and it'd be good to connect.
Well,
Get those connections going, definitely.
of course. And it's, of course,
Yeah.
like you said, more important now than ever to bring
Oh,
positive
yeah.
people into our lives. So Beth, thank you so, so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you ever so much for having me. It's been my absolute pleasure.
All right, burned in teachers, take a deep breath. You just took another step to becoming a burned in teacher. Burn on. If you enjoyed today's podcast episode, you can head over to burnedinteacher.com where you can access the entire vault of Burned In Teacher podcast episodes and more information about ways I want to help you go from burned out teacher to burned in human. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would be so grateful if you would head over to iTunes and leave a review and a rating about the Burned In Teacher podcast. Until next time, take a deep breath, because you just took another step to becoming a burned in teacher. Burn on.